Now, power to the people. It was once a battle cry for revolutionaries, but in recent years it's been a call to arms for the Conservatives. From the big society to localism, David Cameron's talked repeatedly about devolving decision-making down. One important change has been encouraging neighbourhoods to set out their own plans. But does it really work? Paul Bartrop has this report.
It's easy to say in opposition. Before becoming Prime Minister, David Cameron talked a lot about empowering local people.
That same approach lies behind our plans to encourage people to come together in neighbourhood groups so they can work together to make life better. We're going to give, again, communities the chance to take control.
What we got was the Localism Act, allowing the creation of so-called neighbourhood plans.
It will revitalise local democracy and put power back where it belongs, in the hands of the people.
But swap the Westminster hothouse for the cold West Country and things look rather different, particularly to the people of Malmesbury.
What happens in these fields is a big test of government policy. Developers want to build 180 houses here. Wiltshire Council has said no. But what's most significant is that locals have got together and become among the first in the land to produce a neighbourhood plan. Under new rules, that should mean they have more control over development.
They're not saying no to any development in their own beautiful backyard. It's just that they have a different view of where houses should be built. It's all been set out in a 100-page neighbourhood plan, worked up over many months by local residents.
Workshops and reviews. I think that really makes it sound good.
They had to look at everything from national and local planning strategies to human rights rules. It's been a mammoth task.
This is heavy-duty volunteer work. It's not floating about in meetings. It's heavy-duty at your desk, in front of your word processor, writing documents, reading planning documents, studying, trying to understand. It's one of the hardest things I've ever done.
We've done absolutely everything we can, and if we're not allowed to go forward with our plan, it would make a mockery, really, of the government's policy, because we can't possibly do any more. So if it doesn't work for us, it's not going to work for anybody.
They'll soon find out.
There's 26 in all that we originally started from, but you know,
This week they came face to face with the developers at a planning inquiry. An inspector will decide whose plans come out on top after the evidence has been heard and tested by lawyers.
It is daunting for the people, the residents, who have never been involved in this kind of process before. They're coming to almost like a judicial process. They're being cross-examined. They're being pushed and pushed, which is the job of the lawyers. And basically, you know, that is an experience for local residents who feel passionately about what they want for their communities, but aren't used to that kind of sort of very bureaucratic, legal kind of system.
Winning this appeal isn't all. For their neighbourhood plan to take effect, these residents must also get it approved by a local referendum. Only then may there be a bit more power to the people.
Well, we're joined by someone who knows all about this. Alison Bromelo runs a neighbourhood planning network here in Bristol. Alison, thanks for joining us. It looks incredibly hard work.
It is very hard work. Those poor people have been putting hours and weeks, months. The three in Bristol that went for the same system as they did as frontrunner, people have been working on it for 2 years, and they still haven't got to the stage of having a plan yet to take out. It is an enormous commitment, yes.
And this is a group of people who kind of know what they're doing, don't they? I mean, they've applied themselves. One said in the film there, it's the hardest thing that I've ever done. You've got to know about EU law, you've got to know about strategies, core strategies, 100-page documents. Is this how localism works?
It's not just the planning that you have to know about, and that's something that we've picked up on over the last couple of years. It's the whole business about running a project, organising your time, programming it, organising volunteers, never an easy job, working out how to communicate and consult with the public, because the whole thing is based on the idea that it's not just you sitting in a room, it's the fact that you have to bring your whole community along with them, because otherwise the whole thing's going to get thrown out at referendum stage.
Jack Rapesti, is this what the government means by localism?
It's about empowering people, making sure they feel part, and they are part of the process. And I think, yes, it can seem by the sound of it, very daunting and a lot of work.
Well, it is daunting,
But
isn't it? They've said so.
You can use local groups like your local parish or town council or your local neighbourhood group as a conduit for some of the work in administration. But I think it's great that actually our people come to surgeries who say, we don't feel part of the process, nobody listens to us, didn't even know about this planning application. I think this would be a great way when it actually gets going to actually empower people to get involved in local decision making, which can only be a good thing.
Marvin Rees, can this work through communities right across our region?
Well, it's always a challenge when institutions say they're going to empower people, but then say, come across the threshold into our quagmire. That is not really empowerment if people have to jump through several hoops, and we've seen it repeatedly nationally and locally as well. I think also what I hear in just what you're saying as well is a real danger that what you could also end up with the most advantaged communities, as it were, with great resource being able to navigate these bureaucratic nightmare, but the most disadvantaged communities kind of being left behind and not having as much of a voice. So it is absolutely critical to say we're going to give voice to local communities, but we've got to be real about looking at the processes they have to go through and the support we're going to be offering them.
Well, Alison, of course, you've got the full weight of the Communities Department to give you a hand, haven't you, in this whole thing? Do they lead you literally by the hand? What sort of help do you get?
Not at all, no, there's very little guidance. The whole idea is that we make it up as we go along. We have in Bristol, as you said, the Neighbourhood Planning Network. That's something that all the local community groups have got together and formed into a network. Bristol's slightly different from the parish plans because, of course, we don't have parishes, so we don't have a precept. So none of the money comes to the community, it goes to the local planning authority. So we have to work closely with the planning authority in order to get money released at various stages in order to continue our way through the process. And it's a lot of stuff for people to take on board and have to learn.
And you've really got to sort of go for it, don't you? You've got to want to do it, and you've got to have the sorts of skills that we've seen. That it just isn't going to happen.
Well, people do feel
is it?
passionate about these things, planning in their local areas and their local communities. Of course they do. You might be surprised. I agree broadly with Marvin as far as it is a question of empowering people, but allowing them to have the resources and backup they need. And I represent an area with towns and parishes, so there is another layer which can actually step in and help with some of the back work, as it were. But it is an early stage of this law and this process.
You said localism is an illusion, I think, when you were standing for the mayor. Do you still think that?
I said it could be. It depends on what we're talking about. I mean, government institutions can speak with forked tongues, give on one hand and take away with the other. So it's always dangerous. If you're going to say it, you've got to mean it, you've got to back it up with the resource, and we have to look at the way the processes work. Do they exclude people or not?
Gentlemen, for the moment, thank you. Alison, thanks for coming in.